Deadly crocodile attack shocks village. Crocodile snatches 10-year-old boy to his death in Indonesian river as villagers watch in horror. A 10-year-old boy has been tragically killed after being attacked by a crocodile while swimming in a river in Indonesia, leaving the entire village in shock and mourning. The victim, identified as Affan, had been swimming with two friends in the Inggoi River in North Maluku on Tuesday afternoon when the deadly attack occurred. The boy had entered the river to cool off from the heat, unaware that they were in a known crocodile habitat. Now, let's explore the deeper layers of this story here on the AI podcast.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are doing a deep dive that, I have to warn you, starts with a really gut-punching local tragedy in Indonesia. But it quickly expands to illustrate something much bigger, a terrifying global truth, really.
It really does. It's about what happens when human development just steamrolls natural ecosystems. And the consequence, so often, is paid in blood.
That's it, exactly. The sources you've gathered here, they use this one horrific story, the death of a child, to trace a clear line back to these systemic problems.
Right. Things like resource depletion, habitat loss. So our mission for you today is to move past the initial shock of the event itself. We want to help you understand why. Why are fatal crocodile attacks in places like Indonesia actually surging? And what's forcing people and these apex predators into the same shrinking space?
And our entry point, as we said, is the tragic death of 10-year-old Affan. And what's so important to understand is that this wasn't some, reckless situation. He was just doing something completely necessary, routine even.
He was just swimming.
Just swimming in the Inggoi River with two friends trying to cool off. In a lot of rural Indonesia, the river is the only place for that, for hygiene, for relief from the heat.
It's just life.
But that moment of relief turned into just absolute horror.
And that's the dangerous overlap, isn't it? What's fascinating here, or maybe telling, is how quickly the sources move from the incident itself to the systemic threat.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not just framed as one unlucky moment anymore. It's about a situation where forced animal migration has become structural. It's predictable. These highly aggressive reptiles are being pushed directly into the path of daily human life.
Let's focus on the event itself for a minute, because the details are chilling and they really set the scene. Affan was swimming on a Tuesday afternoon. The reports say a large crocodile lunged from the murky water without warning.
Just completely out of nowhere.
An immediate, violent strike. It clamped its jaws around his torso, thrashed, and dragged him under.
And his friends, who managed to get away, they alerted the village. The response, from what the sources say, was huge.
Yeah, not just a few people. We're talking a massive, large-scale search and rescue operation.
Local police, soldiers.
Disaster response teams, and a huge number of local volunteers all came together.
And they used everything they had, right?
Everything. Government rubber boats, local fishing vessels, those community longboats. They were just combing the river, the coast, anywhere they could think of.
But that search itself was incredibly dangerous.
That part really stood out to me.
The reports all emphasize that the entire operation was carried out with, and this is a quote, extreme caution.
Because they were afraid of more attacks.
Exactly. The threat level was so high that even the professional rescuers were at constant risk from the very animal they were looking for. It was a harrowing, high-stakes search.
And it went on for a while, overnight and into Thursday, December 18th.
And the way they found him is just heartbreaking.
It is. They spotted the crocodile near a village pier.
And after they managed to drive it away, Affan's body was found floating just a few feet from where the animal had been.
And that was the official end of the search.
Yeah. And the authorities were quick to point out that this wasn't, a surprise attack at a safe area.
No, this was known territory.
The South Halmahera police chief, Hendra Gunawan, he confirmed it's well-known crocodile territory. Sightings are frequent.
So for them, the tragedy wasn't a shock so much as a fear realized.
A fear they live with every day. And then Awan Ramdani, who's the head of the local search and rescue office, officially closed the operation.
So that closes the book on this one singular tragic event.
But it opens the door to the bigger question, the national system that allowed it to happen.
Right. And this is where we have to zoom out, because this isn't just a regional anomaly.
Not at all. Indonesia has, I think, 14 species of crocodile. But there's one in particular that's responsible for the vast majority of these fatal encounters.
And that would be the estuarine crocodile.
The highly aggressive estuarine crocodile, sometimes called salty.
Okay, so this is where we get into the biology that makes this conflict so terrifying. What is it about this specific animal?
Well, first, just pure size. They're the largest living reptiles on the planet.
Capable of getting how big?
Over 20 feet.
Mm.
And weighing more than 2,000 pounds. They're ambush predators, just incredibly powerful. But their biology, their niche, is the key.
They're estuarine, you said.
Exactly. Which means they thrive in that brackish water where rivers meet the sea. But, and this is critical, they are also highly tolerant of moving far upriver into pure fresh water.
So they're incredibly flexible. When their main coastal habitat gets damaged or disappears, they have the biological toolkit to just move inland.
They just navigate upstream,
Right
towards human communities.
And the data shows this is happening more and more.
It does. All the information we've synthesized points to this really terrifying trend. Fatal crocodile attacks have surged in recent years, particularly in eastern Indonesia.
It's not a flat line of danger. It's an accelerating crisis.
And when you look at the other examples the sources bring up, it paints a really stark picture.
These are the stories that really stick with you.
Absolutely. Like the incident from May of 2025 in Jambi province. A 13-year-old boy.
He was killed after going into a river to get a football.
Just a football. A momentary, innocent decision to step into the water, and he was gone.
Or the one from earlier this year in South Sulawesi. A 53-year-old father of 4 killed while he was bathing with his relatives.
Again, these aren't people on some dangerous expedition. These are just daily activities, things you have to do to live.
That repeated pattern is the warning, isn't it?
It's the critical warning that all the sources underline. Affan's death, when you put it next to these others, it confirms this is a growing national threat. It's not just a series of isolated tragedies.
Which forces the core question of this whole deep dive. If the crocodiles have always been there, why are they suddenly sharing space with people in such a deadly way?
Exactly. Why now?
This is really the heart of it. We've established this surge in attacks by a highly adaptable predator. Now we get to the why. The sources seem to connect the dots pretty clearly.
They do. They state that the attacks have increased because the crocodiles are being forced closer to villages.
So what's pushing them? What are the specific pressures driving them inland?
It's a textbook confluence of pressures, really. You've got ecological pressure on one side and development pressure on the other. And they feed into each other.
Okay, let's start with the ecological side. Food scarcity.
The reports name overfishing, explicitly, as a primary driver.
So less fish in the sea means more crocodiles on land, or further upriver.
Pretty much. Crocodiles, especially in those estuaries, they rely on robust fish populations. But when commercial, non-sustainable fishing practices deplete those stocks,
their food is gone.
their primary food source is gone. And these are massive animals that need a lot of food. So they face starvation.
So it's simple logic. If you take away their food in their natural safe zone, these huge, aggressive animals have no choice. They have to push upstream looking for something to eat.
Exactly. They follow whatever food sources are left. And where does that lead them?
Closer to human settlements.
Right. Where smaller tributaries might be less fished, or where human activity like waste disposal, or even just people fishing for themselves, might attract smaller prey. Hunger drives displacement.
Okay, so that's pressure number 1. Less food. The second pressure is about their home, the literal shrinking of their habitat.
And here the sources cite 3 specific heavy-impact human activities.
What are they?
First, just expansive coastal development. Indonesia is developing incredibly fast. So you have infrastructure, ports, new settlements, all of it pushing into sensitive wetlands and mangrove forests.
Which were their historic hunting grounds and nurseries, right?
Exactly. We're essentially building over their bedrooms and their kitchens. Then you add farming expansion.
Draining wetlands for crops.
Yep. Wetlands are drained, forests cleared, natural boundaries are erased, it fragments their territory. And the third driver, which is often the most toxic, is tin mining.
How does tin mining specifically make things worse? Is it more damaging than, say, farming?
The reports really highlight its unique devastation. Because mining doesn't just remove the habitat, it often poisons what's left.
Okay.
Tin mining clears huge areas of land and uses a ton of water, and it often releases sediment and chemical runoff straight back into the rivers.
Making it uninhabitable for their prey.
And sometimes for the crocodiles themselves, it completely disrupts the whole ecological balance of the estuary. So while the sources don't say, mining is worse than farming, They make it clear that mining creates a complete ecological catastrophe in a specific area.
That's a critical distinction. So you have this catastrophic double whammy.
That's a good way to put it.
Less food because of overfishing, and a smaller, degraded, sometimes toxic home base because of all this development. The inevitable result, as the reports say, is that these forces are pushing the biggest, hungriest, most aggressive crocodiles further inland.
And this is where the conflict becomes absolutely unavoidable.
Because while the crocodiles are being pushed inland by our activities,
The simple, harsh truth is that for so many of these rural communities, the rivers are everything. They're essential.
we're talking about bathing, washing clothes, getting drinking water. There's no alternative infrastructure, no pipes, no taps.
It's not a convenience, it's survival. Basic hygiene.
So you have this collision point. It's like we paved over the restaurant where they ate, and then we built our entire communal kitchen right next to their last remaining shelter.
It is a perfect, catastrophic storm. Displaced, hungry, aggressive predators who are biologically wired to travel upriver,
Moving into the only space they have left.
which is also the only source of water and life for human communities. It makes the conflict not just likely, but inevitable.
And the authorities seem to know this. The sources mention all these ongoing warnings.
Yeah, they're urging residents to be vigilant, to avoid known crocodile rivers.
But that warning, as necessary as it is, it must ring so hollow for the people living there.
Of course. Because for many of them, avoiding the river is simply not an option. You can't just not bathe or wash your clothes.
So the risk remains dangerously high.
Precisely because the root causes, the overfishing, the mining, the development, none of that has been addressed. The system itself is just pushing the next tragedy forward.
That brings this whole thing full circle. We've really, I think, accomplished our mission for you. We started with that specific, horrific local tragedy of Affan in the Inggoi River, the shock of it. But what we've synthesized from these reports is that the root cause of his death is this complex interplay between massive development, ecological pressures, and the simple non-negotiable needs of rural communities.
So what does this all mean?
Go on.
The core insight here, I think, is that the danger isn't random. It's not bad luck, it's structural. And it is accelerating. The tragedy is just the most brutal symptom of a human-wildlife conflict that's currently tipped completely against the humans.
And the displacement of the crocodiles, it isn't slow or gradual, it's happening fast. It's collapsing decades of ecological distance and safety into a single tragic riverbank.
It is a structural tension created by the sheer scale of human economic activity. The very communities who rely on these rivers are the ones paying the price for the habitat destruction happening all around them.
Which brings us to the final, really heavy synthesis from these sources.
That the very activities essential for human survival, like bathing, fishing, are precisely where the risk is highest.
Because of the pressure we, as humans, are putting on the broader ecosystem through large-scale mining, farming, all of it.
Exactly. So the provocative thought to leave you with is really built on that tension. Given that these communities must use these rivers for daily life, it's not a choice. And given the economic inevitability of the coastal development and mining that's driving this, is there any sustainable path forward?
A path that doesn't involve trading human safety for economic gain.
Right. How does a community survive when its only essential resource is also its greatest and most rapidly growing threat?
This is horror. One question for you. How can communities living near crocodile habitats better protect children from such deadly encounters? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.